What up, boys and girls? Welcome back to our show. This is a new little series that we're gonna call What's Real.
What's Real is where we shed a little light on the subtle influences of our environment, things that affect us day to day, whether it's subconscious or something that you might not outright think about, but that affects the choices you make and how you consume things.
Just a few hours ago, we were having a bit of a debate. After the big game, we were going on the internet looking at all the new trailers, and boy, was I excited when I got to see the Mission Impossible 6 Fallout trailer, baby! Oh my God, this movie looks fantastic, all right? Tom Cruise is back as Ethan Hunt. He's kicking ass, taking names. I grew up with these movies, Wes. All right, this man was inspirational to me as a kid. I wanted to be that spy. I wanted to have all those gadgets.
I mean, it's just Tom Cruise in another Mission Impossible movie. You're kind of hyping it up just a little bit.
Not even a little.
I mean, if you were talking about a true classic, like Tom Cruise in Top Gun, where he's this great fighter pilot, and he gets the lady, and he's there for his brothers, and he's finding out all these great things about himself.
No.
You know, just really talking about
Top Gun.
A great Tom Cruise film.
Top Gun is a bunch of little jet montages that have no structure.
A bunch of
and Tom Cruise yelling
jet
inside of them.
with a great soundtrack that really encapsulates the feeling of the era. Me and my brothers used to watch this all the time. We'd sit down with our dad. We would quote it from the beginning to the end. We knew every line. It was so nostalgic. It just, like, every time I turn on that movie, even to this day, it just gives me good feelings, good memories of good times with the folks, just kicking back, watching a classic film.
Fuck Top Gun.
You don't know nothing. You don't know nothing.
It's all about those experiences that we have back in the day with family, with ourselves, whether it's outside, whether it's a certain smell, a certain feeling.
Yeah, nostalgia is really like a very strong force and a strong influence in the way that we perceive our environment and the way things affect us. And it's like, what other things out there are there where we're not even thinking about it, but nostalgia is kind of shaping our behavior and our actions and like what we're into.
I feel like nostalgia has a way of creeping into our subconscious because of course we all love nostalgia. Sometimes maybe you'll smell a certain food and it'll remind you of something your grandma used to make.
Maybe the feelings are not always happy, but bittersweet or whatever, and they're complex, but for whatever reason you cherish that memory.
Yeah. And those are obvious ones. Those are ones that you really feel and you hear and it sparks something in your head. But there are other things in nostalgia that I feel like are much more subtle.
Like our fashion. The way we dress, the way that things recycle and come back up as we see them. Let's talk about like 90s fashion, how that's kind of coming back up again right now. A huge example of that would be like Chance the Rapper with the overalls.
Yeah.
And how that's coming back in fashion heavy right now, and like
90s shoes.
90s shoes, the hairstyles,
Yep.
a lot of the high top fades, the different crazy hairstyles, coloring hair, all stuff that people did back in the 90s.
And I feel like that has a lot to do with the fact that kids from the 90s are now in positions and we're of ages where we are the deciding factors of these companies. Almost bringing this nostalgia back into the modern day culture. And I think it's also creeping its way into music as well. A lot of people, they'll be like, oh, I love their old school sound. I love how they're bringing back the old styles of hip hop or like old styles of rock.
And even with like sampling and things like that, like when you hear a nice classic 60s or 70s or 80s sample in a new song, and people that knew that old song, it draws them in even more because they have those memories attached to it and like everything that came with that original song, and they're making those connections, and it helps them create an even stronger emotional attachment to the new piece.
Nostalgia is so interesting like that because we love experiencing that when they happen naturally, but like we're saying, you can also use it. I think about that a lot when I listen to Pimp a Butterfly. The saxophones all throughout that album really remind me of different 90s like city sounds from back in the day.
Yeah, or even like further back the 90s, like Harlem Renaissance, jazz clubs, all that. And some artists will even use nostalgia to teach, or they'll take something that they're nostalgic about and recognize that it's a powerful thing in our culture and they want to bring it back. They don't want to let the new generations forget those lessons. So Kendrick Lamar on the song I samples the Isley Brothers. And I remember him talking in their interview, and he was saying very specifically that he did that on purpose and intentionally so that he could bring back that sound and bring back the origins of soul in certain ways and to remind people where it all started.
Another big place nostalgia has a huge influence on is the film industry. And I don't think it's a very positive influence either. I think it capitalizes on nostalgic influences in a way that is very industrial. This past decade, Hollywood has really been enjoying pumping out, like we said before, sequels,
A lot of remakes.
and remakes and stuff like that.
And people go to see them because they remember what the old ones were like and they can relate to them, and they give them those nostalgic feelings about their childhood, whether it be Star Wars, and maybe his father wants to take his young son to go see Star Wars because he grew up on Star Wars and his dad took him to see it. So now it's like a tradition. And that is a positive thing, but it also can be negative for the creation of new art.
Now, in some ways, it can be good, like we said earlier with Blade Runner. Blade Runner is a great sequel and a great way to bring back those nostalgic feelings. But because it's become very industrialized, it's become oversaturated. There are so many because it makes it so easy, and people love that feeling of old being new. So when they're remade and redone, people are like, oh, we gotta go see that. Like you said, maybe they want to take their son because they remember the experience. So it's just this cycle of like, all right, we'll keep making more, keep making more, keep making
But
more.
when you overdo nostalgia, that's where I think you run into the problem of becoming corny. And that's how you get into things where my feelings about the new Mission Impossible. It's like, yeah, the first Mission Impossible was this great spy movie, and like you said, you looked up to Ethan Hunt, you felt all these feelings, and eventually, if you keep seeing that show played over too much, I don't want Mission Impossible to become corny. I don't want it to play itself out. I want it to remain what it was for you, without being ruined by pushing it too far and becoming too industrialized and them capitalizing on it just for the dollar bill.
How would you feel if Top Gun got a sequel?
I would probably cry myself to sleep the night that got announced.
Oh.
Because that sounds like a terrible idea. Like, where are they going to go with that? There's nowhere to go. Even if he becomes an instructor and there's a new hot shot, it's going to be the same story over and over again. And like I said, they're going to make it corny. They're going to play it out. I think it would ruin the nostalgia that I have.
We have examples of nostalgia being detrimental in things like the film industry or Hollywood, but a positive influence in things like fashion or music. So it's strange the way it moves around in these different industries.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting regardless of what industry or what scenario you apply it, but one thing for sure is that it's unavoidable. It's inevitable. It's always going to be there kind of subconsciously in the background, very subtle, and it's just important to recognize when it's affecting us, when nostalgia is influencing the way that we perceive the world. Even if you wouldn't change the music you listen to or the movies you see because you think it's happening because of nostalgia, it's just intriguing to think about how it's affecting you in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And what things you are unbiasedly, objectively into, for what reasons, and then what things are just for you because you like it and that's what you grew up on and it's your thing, you know? The debate will never end.
No.
Because everybody's got their own personal nostalgia, their own personal biases, and that's the beautiful thing about life, that everybody has these unique experiences and these things that they connect to emotionally.
What do you guys connect to? What are your guys' biases? What are some nostalgic feelings that you guys get? What movies or songs are you guys like, oh my gosh, that is my childhood?
In regards to what's real, let us know. Do you think it's important at all to think about how nostalgia affects you, or what other things are subconsciously going on in your mind? Do you want to control those things, or you want to just let them flow freely? Talk to us.